The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Phil Wegman from RealClearPolitics.com, among those in the White House press corps, querying White House spokeshuman KJP yesterday about the second trove of documents, which we knew had been discovered and reported, but as of yesterday's show, we didn't know where they were located or the nature of those documents. We know more after yesterday, where it was disclosed the documents were in the big guy's garage, in the big guy's library. But look, if his garage is safe enough for his vintage vet, then it's safe enough for America's secrets. That's what I say.
Classified material next to your Corvette? What were you thinking?
Oh, I love it.
Let me, I'm going to get a chance to speak on all this, God willing, soon. But as I said earlier this week, people, and by the way, my Corvette's in a locked garage. Okay, so it's not like you're sitting out in the street. But at any rate, yes, as well as my Corvette. But as I said earlier this week, people know I take classified documents and classified material seriously.
Obviously.
Oh, I mean,
you don't think he wants to protect his vet? Is that what you're saying?
And the vet, by the way, was a wedding gift from his father, just so you know. It's a 67 Corvette.
So touching. Who has the remote controls who has the garage door openers?
Yeah, there you go.
To the Biden. All right, so here's Phil Wegman now with that disclosure, following up with KJP to understand a few things and get the typical and repetitive process arguments that KJP has been hiding behind for the last 3 days.
The position of the White House that legally the president could have just held on to these?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they did the right thing, period. I wouldn't read into it. I'm saying that they did the right thing and they did it voluntarily, because it is the right thing to do when you find these types of documents, to indeed reach out to the archivists and reach out to the Department of Justice. So they, and outside of that, they have been cooperating very closely with the Department of Justice. It is and rightfully so. They did this.
See, she said she said in the press conference the lawyers did the right thing and they didn't have to. Well, actually, they did have to. But then she said, "Well, don't worry about whether they had to or not. The important thing is that they did the right thing." So then, did the president do the wrong thing, or whoever was responsible for moving classified information from the White House to his home, to his phony think tank? Did they do the wrong thing? We don't know yet, because there's a review going on, and she won't answer that question. Any idea how many people had access to those documents?
Does the administration have any idea, between the garage and the Biden pen office, just how many people could have gotten their hands on this? Or, are we to assume that the White House doesn't have an estimate?
There's an ongoing review on this, and I would refer
review
to the Department of Justice.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's
I'm going to see here, ongoing review.
Part of their commitment to transparency. Again, the watchword: seriously, inadvertently, and transparently. Those are the three pillars of the Biden administration's handling of classified information. She was asked again about Mr. 10%'s statement the other day that he was told by lawyers not to ask about the documents, and then he sort of intimated the same thing yesterday when he said, someday soon, God willing, I'll be able to talk about this, as if it depends on God rather than just your forthrightness. This is her response.
The president has said that his lawyers have advised him not to ask what was in these classified documents. I don't understand the purpose of that. He's the president of the United States. He has access to
because
all
we're trying to
classified
do this by the book. We're trying to do this in the appropriate way. And so that's what I would say to you. We have his team has been complying, right, cooperating with the Department of Justice, and I will leave it there. I'm not going to go beyond.
The book says that he can't look at this. What would compel him or push him in that direction? Because you've said it repeatedly. What, I guess, as he tries to do this by the book, as he tries to do the right thing, what are his lawyers looking at that says, yeah, don't look at this classified information that was found?
Again, there's a process here. The process is that when the lawyers found that these documents existed, they reached out to the archive and also the Department of Justice. That is the process, and they have been cooperating closely, working closely with the Department of Justice. And now, as you've heard, the Attorney General made a statement today, and so I would refer you to them. All right, everybody. Thank you.
All right, that's a
All right,
wrap.
nice to hear. Yeah.
That's all I can take for one day. So again, classified information was inadvertently moved around all over the place, from the White House to the House to the phony think tank. That happened inadvertently. Though, remember, he takes the handling of classified information very seriously, at least as seriously as keeping his vintage vet in mint condition. And that was so he's serious. It was inadvertent. And then this whole effort from the discovery of these documents, we don't know what prompted it, back pre-election, has been a exercise in transparency, even though we weren't told about it until this week, even though we weren't told about the second trove of documents that was discovered in December, even though earlier this week Karine Jean-Pierre knew about the second trove of documents, but she played coy about it.
Oh, she lied. Yeah.
These are all illustrations of the Biden administration's commitment to transparency. So again, they take it seriously. They've been transparent. And to the extent that anything inappropriate happened, it happened inadvertently by some people we don't know who.
And he's had these documents for 6 years, folks. And there was also, besides the office and then his garage near the Corvette, one document was also found, quote, in stored materials in an adjacent room.
Right. And I think Colonel Mustard was in that room.
With the pipe wrench.
Kevin Brock, former Assistant Director of Intel for the FBI, former Principal Deputy Director of the National Counterterrorism Center, joins us. Kevin, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dan and Amy. Nice to be with you. I understand that the Corvette is being polygraphed this morning to make sure that it didn't spread any of that sensitive information. Yeah,
it's interesting because, I think you're going to appreciate this comparison. You and Hank Johnson are right on the same wavelength. Representative Hank Johnson, who famously worried about Guam capsizing with too many Marines being deployed there, he has the same thing. Are we looking at everybody? This is a great Law and Order episode. You're looking at Joe Biden. You're looking at his inner circle. What about the Corvette? What about a false flag operation? Listen, Kevin.
But I'm suspicious of the timing of it. I'm also aware of the fact that things can be planted on people. Places and things can be planted. Things can be planted in places.
See, Kevin, you may not understand this as only a former assistant director of Intel, counterintel FBI. So things can be planted at places. There are places where things can be planted, and could be Trump, could be Mark Furman, could be some sort of a vast right-wing conspiracy, false flag operation. We don't know.
Well, thank you for comparing me to Hank Johnson. I appreciate that.
I thought you would.
Yeah. He's Joe Biden has got a problem here. He effectively, and others have said this, but it's true. He's blown up any chance of a case against Donald Trump by the Department of Justice. If they were thinking of charging Trump, I don't think they seriously were. But if they were, that's gone away. Joe Biden could declassify those documents now that he's president. And he couldn't when he was vice president, but now he could. But how can he do that without exonerating or supporting Donald Trump's position in his case? Look, the press spokesperson for the president isn't entirely wrong. There is a process for reporting classified, mishandling of classified information. It happens all the time, unfortunately, and the process is pretty benign, and people are, they understand that these things happen, but so that, again, gives rise to the question, why was Donald Trump's house raided in an early morning search warrant when it was unnecessary to do so? And I maintain that to this day. But there's two dynamics here, Dan, is that you've got the mishandling of classified information, which the Republicans understandably are going to they're going to wring every bit of political hay they can out of that, and they're doing so now. But it has also drawn attention to this Penn Biden Center that was stood up after Joe Biden left the vice presidency, They hired him, paid him nearly $1 million over 2 years to be a once in a while show up professor, and during that time frame, the Chinese government donates about close to $50 million to the University of Pennsylvania, and then they decided early in 2022, 160 of their faculty decided to write an open letter complaining about the FBI's very successful China Initiative, which is a counterintelligence program targeting hostile Chinese intelligence activities targeting U.S. universities. They complain about it, saying that it's biased and racially profiling. And after posting that letter, I guess they suddenly realized that most Chinese citizens are Asian. And how did the FBI miss that?
Yeah.
So they complain about this program that is materially impacting and affecting in a negative way Chinese intelligence operations in this country. And 2 weeks after complaining, Biden's DOJ tells the FBI to shut down the program.
Well, Fox and NBC. Oh, sorry. Go on. I didn't mean to.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, Fox and NBC say the first trove of documents that were found in his locked office in the closet there pertain to Ukraine, the UK, and Iran. Do you know any more about that?
No, not more than what's been publicized. Not much has been released on that. Obviously, Ukraine raises the antenna a little bit because his son had dealings with Ukraine, business dealings, and Joe Biden was supposedly on point in the Obama administration for dealing with the Ukraine, which he did famously by having one of their prosecutors fired, a prosecutor who was looking into the activities of his son. All of this creates entanglements for Biden and his administration. And suddenly you start looking at the way the administration is handling China and some of the issues surrounding China and realizing, wow, they're not being very aggressive against China in issues like, fentanyl delivery through the cartels, the COVID origination and spread, the fact that China is trying to build 2 ports in the Western Hemisphere under our nose that are military capable in El Salvador and Argentina, without pushback, whatever happened to the Monroe Doctrine. You start to wonder, and then they squash this highly effective FBI counterintelligence program after their sponsor, the Biden Penn sponsor, complains.
And also on the China piece too, Tucker Carlson reported earlier this week emails from Hunter Biden's laptop that are publicly accessible. One of them is a professor at Penn inviting Hunter Biden's daughter at the behest of some Chinese communist higher up to attend a conference in Beijing as their guest. And so, these entanglements between Biden Inc. and Ukraine and China, and then we have classified information, reportedly at least about Ukraine. Who knows if there are documents that relate to China as well, and all this money is being funneled to where Joe Biden gets a sinecure, an academic sinecure. Yeah, that does start to raise some questions. I hope the Department of Justice, that special counsel, will investigate pending his review of those documents.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we will.
But these are concerning, and you raise a good point there that they're bending over backwards to curry favor with the Biden. So the storage, the casual and irresponsible storage of classified information at his home and at the Penn Biden Center becomes more intriguing once we know the nature of those documents and was there information on those classified documents that helped support Hunter Biden's consulting arrangements that he had with entities in the Ukraine and in China. Were they kept on purpose, or was it truly an inadvertent storage? There's no reason to bring classified document to the Penn Biden Center. There's nothing they can do with it. They can't even talk about what's on the documents with people who are not cleared. So why have them there in the first place?
Why were the documents separated out? Some over here in his office, some in the garage, one in another adjacent room to the garage. Yeah.
The American people must be just totally aghast at what appears to be some very casual handling of very sensitive documents, one of which was classified as SCI, Special Compartmented Information. To get that clearance, you have to go through a rigorous counterintelligence polygraph, which I've been through. They're no fun. And so it is at the highest level of clearance. And to find that just, included with a bunch of documents in a locked closet breaks every rule of storage there is.
Well, and the other thing, too, is this whole Biden has these documents at his home, in his library, but he doesn't know what they are, and he's been advised by his attorneys to not ask about what they are. I mean, he acts like something he didn't know was there was discovered. Well, that's exactly what they're saying. They were inadvertently put there somehow by someone, and Biden doesn't know anything about them. That seems to me to strain the bounds of credulity as well.
It does. I hope he's right. He's in a difficult position to prove that position, and it's difficult to disprove it. But the merging of all of these, the confluence of these factors, where you have an incredible amount of money given to the University of Pennsylvania at the same time that they've established this Penn Biden Center and hired him as a professor. Later, he becomes president. People complain about a program that's hurting China, and it suddenly goes away because the Biden administration makes it go away.
Yeah,
it just smells.
That's a problem.
It just smells.
And the other thing too is, who made the decision to take the documents in the first place? So Biden wasn't apprised of that. There were no discussions about we're going to take these boxes of documents that relate to these topic areas. He doesn't know anything about that. People just do things spontaneously around him that he doesn't know anything about, and he has he doesn't have use for, or he doesn't lack use for them. They just happen.
Well, in his favor is the fact that we watched him for 2 years be very confused over a lot of things, and so it almost becomes believable.
Right? Who was it? Gigante? Was that the mob boss that walked around Manhattan in a robe to try to convey that he was insane, and so he couldn't be held legally culpable for what he did? Maybe that's what we're going to see next. Before we let you go, I wanted to tackle a couple other topics too that are FBI related. Sure. I hate to always make you defend the FBI, but the story out, and we can't forget about this. Last summer, after the Dobbs decision was leaked, there's 78 bombings to acts of vandalism against pro-life offices, pregnancy care centers around the country. And there have been 0 arrests by the FBI. The pro-life community is so unimpressed with the FBI's efforts here that they're in the process of hiring their own private investigators to try to identify parties that are responsible. And, so if a crossword is said at a school board meeting, then Ray and Garland are scrambling choppers in amphibious vehicles. You have 78 acts of vandalism against groups that are affiliated with a particular policy position, and nobody's interested.
I'm with you on this. I've written about it. It's one of my soapboxes. This speaks to the perception problem that the FBI has right now. They'll send 20 armed agents in tactical gear to arrest a Catholic homeschool father who was protesting outside an abortion facility and got into a confrontation with one of the support staff there. He gets the full treatment of a tactical arrest early in the morning, and you've got nearly 100 attacks on pro-life pregnancy counseling centers and Catholic churches, vandalism, serious fire bombings, that type of thing, and no arrest yet. The whole issue around Jane's Revenge, which claims credit for many of these attacks, sets up beautifully for the FBI's wheelhouse. This is what the FBI does. They determine if there's an organized group out there, no matter how loosely organized group out there, creating or conducting domestic terrorism against U.S. entities. That's what the FBI does. That's what they're good at. This sets up well. It shouldn't be hard for the FBI to determine who's behind Jane's Revenge and start developing informants in that group, flipping people, and dismantling them under the RICO statutes of this country. The fact that it hasn't been done yet either indicates that these people are uncannily good, more so than any other domestic terrorism group that's existed in this country, or it's just not getting the full force of attention that it could be. Now, it could be that the FBI is conducting investigations, bringing cases to the U.S. Attorney's offices, and they're just not getting the attention they need out of the Department of Justice. We don't know yet. I hope that's the case.
I
wouldn't be surprised.
This is against the backdrop yesterday of 210 out of 211 House Democrats who voted against legislation that would mandate care for a child who is born alive and survives a botched abortion. So maybe the perspective of that party on that issue is informing the perspective of DOJ and or FBI on the issue of violence directed at Catholic churches and pro-life organizations. Gee, I wonder.
Right, and a similar number voted against a resolution to condemn the attacks on these pregnancy counseling centers and the Catholic churches. So, it's when you've got a whole political party and unified against anything that could, that they interpret as harming women's reproductive rights, that's a big pressure. And, the FBI traditionally has done the right thing and investigated crimes no matter who's behind it. And I hope this results in the same outcome, but it's frustrating right now.
He is Kevin Brock, former Assistant Director of Intelligence for the FBI, former Principal Deputy Director of the National Counterterrorism Center as well. Kevin Brock, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good talking to you guys.
Yeah, thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
When you're looking to make your business bulletproof, what comes to mind? Trustworthiness? Accuracy? Truthiness? Well, that's not even a real word. In today's competitive business landscape, considerations like trust, attention to service, accuracy, and knowledge are critical. So is cost, and finding the right balance is important, especially where your business insurance, employee benefits, and executive compensation needs are concerned. For bulletproofing your business, remember DSP Insurance Services. DSP is family-owned and has provided comprehensive risk management solutions and strategic excellence across industries for over 40 years. Business owners continue to partner with DSP because they offer the robust services of a national broker, yet a personal touch that is harder than ever to find these days. Contact DSP Insurance Services for a business and risk audit today. Visit online at dspmybusiness.com. That's dspmybusiness.com. DSP Insurance, your outsourced risk management department since 1981.
AM 560. The Answer.
And Dan, you're discussing that issue that passed on the House floor yesterday. Andrea Mitchell stopped a reporter who used the word pro-life. She's like, we don't say that. It literally interrupted his report.